Thanks for being here, you crazy bitch.
Let's do the damn thing. I've been telling you to do this for years. I'm so excited for you. I'm pumped about this.
Never done anything like this in my life. We're literally winging it. I'm scared shitless.
Yeah,
but we're gonna do it, and we're gonna see if we inspire other people, and if they feel less alone.
You inspire other people. It's your story.
I know. Well, I want to inspire other people, and maybe people will feel less alone. When people see me, I think they think that I have it all together, which I try. It's a protection thing, but I do try to, have my life together because of control.
Your appearance is very deceptive, I will say. Like, the way that you look is very deceptive. When I first met you, I feel like I never would have guessed you had the story that you had.
And that's most of people. Yeah. That's most people.
That's the beauty of you, though, is like you should be broken on the street, homeless, doing heroin, and you're not.
No.
So I feel like, how did you become the person you are? Was it because in that moment you said, I'm here for a reason?
Yeah. I'm here to change the story.
Rewriting the story.
I'm rewriting. I'm writing my own book right now. I'm having trouble with the ending just because it's a lot of emotional stuff. It's hard. But
it's not over.
No, it's not over.
It's not over.
But I thought with the podcast that people could understand that whatever they're going through. I have been a loner my whole life. It doesn't matter if there's 300 people in the room. I still feel alone. I isolate. I like to be alone.
Your calm sanctuary.
Yeah, calm sanctuary, because when it's so much chaos, you just want to turn the noise off. And even when I turn the noise off, it's still loud. So if I'm in a group setting and it's extra loud, I can't survive. Yeah. I want to leave. I'm nothing like the group in the room. Now, if I share my story and people want to share theirs, then it's amazing, right? You don't feel alone. You feel like, oh, they understand me.
Yeah, I feel like with this podcast, you want people to not feel alone. Like, you want to share your story and say, I've been through all this trauma in life. I've lost my parents, the people that are supposed to be my home and my safe place. You never had that. And yet here you are at 36 years old. 37 years old. So you've survived. You're still here.
Yeah.
And you're successful and you have all these great things in life, and you made it on the other side.
Yeah.
You're still struggling every day, obviously, to keep your head above water, but you're here and you've survived. And I feel like that's why you're doing this, is to help people get past the trauma and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Even if every day you have a hole in your heart, you can still, live a full life and find your purpose and your calling in life.
Yeah. My happiness comes from other people's stories. That's all. I walk down the street every day. I wonder if people are happy, and that I hope that they are. I've always been a cheerleader, no matter who it is. No matter where they're from, no matter what they have, what they don't have, I want everyone to be able to be happy.
This is why I want you to use your voice.
Oh, God. I'm just not ready for this.
Tell the story. Yeah. Like, being vulnerable is a beautiful thing, and you'll help heal other people by telling your story. So let's start from the beginning. Like, where did you come from? Talk about your parents, your upbringing.
Yeah. So my parents had me at a young age. On the younger side. My father was an amazing human being. My mother was an amazing human being. They met when they were using, but they both struggled with addiction since they were young. My mom 14, my father around the same age. And, heroin's a very hard drug to kick. My mom never stopped using heroin. Heroin was the drug through and through. My father tried to get sober, went to cocaine, went to alcohol, tried all the other stuff because he didn't want to go back to heroin. And then, you resort back to that. I feel like it's just because the drug, it's really hard to kick.
When they had you, were they together or were they separate?
They had me when they were together.
Okay.
Then I was raised by them. But in the meantime, my grandparents would always come in and take me, because they knew that their kids on both sides, that they knew that they couldn't take care of me.
Drug addicts.
Yeah. They were partying. They were in and out of treatment, trying to get sober. They were in jail, which would make them sober, for getting caught with drugs in the car. And they just couldn't get it. But they loved me and they were trying.
I mean, drug addiction is no joke. Paige, it's a disease, like, it's a true disease, and even if they want to get sober, and even if they, they want to care for you and love you right, like, it's a sickness. And I think that's what people don't understand. Right. And I feel like, you lived it, and you say from the beginning, your parents are amazing humans, and they are. They just have this disease that they suffered with.
Right.
And a lot of people suffer with the same disease. And I think, understanding that and being able to separate that is what you've done. Like, you love your parents so much, but you know that they were sick, and you could essentially, like, resent them for things or have, hate them, quote unquote, because of what they did. But you understand that it was a disease, and that they did love you with everything they knew how to love you with.
Yeah.
Right?
And, you can see that at a young age from different things, right? Then when they would see me at certain times, like my mom would bring me little stuffed animals or like something that she won, anything, because they were trying everything they could to show love. My father was more sober at times than my mother was. My dad had longer intervals of not using, but then drinking and not using drugs. My mom was sober for a very short time, because I feel like when you start hanging around with one friend, when you get back that used to use drugs, you go straight back.
Yeah.
And I think
you got to change groups, right?
You have to change your whole life. And so my mom had a very traumatic upbringing.
So she came from a traumatic background and had
Very
trauma
traumatic.
herself, and then it essentially dominoed into her life and the way that she was. Yeah.
And you try your best, but you're trying to stay afloat as well, as I know, and other people that share their stories on here will tell you. And so she just couldn't kick it.
Yeah.
She couldn't beat it. My father obviously couldn't beat it as well, but they really did try. And that's the thing.
After they had you, and you said your grandparents kind of raised you in the mix and kind of, took you in essentially when they were in jail or doing whatever. When did you ever live with your grandparents? Like, did you ever live with them, or were you always with your parents?
So I was always with my parents, and then I would live with my dad separately at times on the weekends, and then I'd be with my mom separately. But my grandparents took me when I was 4 years old. I remember, like yesterday actually, and this is the whole reason why I want to tell this story, is that my mom had me in the back seat. Things were weird in the car. I remember being a young kid and a bag of stuffed animals next to me, and that was her way to overcompensate for the love that she couldn't give, because it always felt safe when she would leave the house and I'd be there by myself, 3, 4, 5 years old, 6 years old. I'd wake up and have no parent there because she'd leave and use, but she would put stuffed animals all around me. So that was like the barrier.
That was like her way to show you love and to act like she wasn't like a bad mom by leaving you.
Right.
She'd give you these things and it'd make herself feel better, essentially.
And she couldn't give me anything, but she did give me love when she could, words of affirmation. You just felt it from her. But the stuffed animals made me feel safe, right? Because I had
a piece of her
with me. So then she was driving me to my grandparents one day, and she kept looking back in the rearview mirror at me. And I was like, where are we going? And she's like, oh, to Nani and Grandpa's. And I was like, okay, well, when are you coming back? And she wouldn't really say anything. And we pulled up to the house. We parked the car. She picked me up in one hand. She picked the bag of stuffed animals up. We walked towards the front door. I heard the front door open. My grandfather was standing there. So I saw flashing lights behind me. So I would look forward at him, and I would look backwards, and cops were there, standing outside the car with lights. And so as we walked up, I looked as a child, you're like,
what is happening?
What is happening? But I've seen the lights before because it was a bunch of chaos when I was younger. To me, it was almost like the norm. The cops started walking up to the house, and clearly they, as an adult, they were taking her away. And, I'm screaming. My grandfather's in the doorway. My nan's asking what's wrong, coming down the stairs. And so there's a little kid that's screaming, and I'm in between two people that I love. And so I'm getting handed off, basically, and I don't know what's going on or if she's ever coming back. And as a kid, no matter what they did, you always want your parents. It's just a thing.
Of course.
I loved my grandparents, but you always want your parents, especially my mom.
Yeah.
I'll always remember my mom in that way. She was taken away, and she didn't come back for years. And so when she came back, I was older. I lived with my grandparents.
How old
she
were
tried
you?
to come.
Do you think?
I was probably like 7 or 8, and I think because my mom had been going to jail so much that after the, second, third time, they keep you for a longer time. And when I look back to it today, I'm like, God, not that it's not a big deal, but like all the other things in the world and getting caught with drugs in the car, it's like, or something minor, I know you have people do the time, But I'm like, the bigger scheme of things, like I wish they would send them to rehab first or like treatment first.
Like get them help first before putting them in jail.
And I think they try in jail, right? And I think that they try after, and you're mandated to go
like a probation period or
rehab. But
something.
if they're an adult, they can check themselves out. So if it's mandated, she has to stay. If it's not, and she goes to rehab, she can check out. So after that moment, you know, you don't trust anybody.
Yeah, of course.
You feel like you're not loved. You feel like you're not enough ever.
It's
abandonment. And which was constantly happening with my parents. I was always at school getting picked up by random people. I was the last one to get dropped off. I was the last one to get picked up. Everyone else was leaving with their mom and dad or, you know, whoever they got. I would sit there by myself and wait for my grandparents. You know, and I'm a child. Like you want people to show up. And all you know what to do is to protect, like, I don't even know at that age.
You're like, I think maybe in survival mode in your own little way.
Yeah,
you know?
it's almost like it forces you to be in survival mode. And that's what I've been doing my entire life. And it's hard to break that because I'm so used to it.
It's so indoctrined in your brain. I mean, the memories are just like so vivid. Like even when you're telling the story, like I can feel like the visceral reaction still, you know, like you can still feel like the, you know, the emotion from the event. Like it's so palpable, which is, I mean, I think how trauma lives in you forever. Like it's a palpable, there's moments in life that define everything and you carry them forever. And I feel like that's kind of what you're like, you know.
And you grow up and you know, my dad's in and out, my mom's in and out. I'm with my dad's parents. I'm with my mom's mom, who I love dearly and I'm the closest to today. You know, she's the one that really raised me too and shaped me. And, you know, as you get older, you learn more and you feel it more because you know what's going on. And so when people are trying to hide what's going on from you, but people are being taken away and arrested and rehab, like you kind of know as you get older. You're like this, there's something wrong here.
Like what's going on?
Right. So, you know, flash forward, my mom came and tried to get me a couple of times and I was comfortable at my nan's house and my grandparents' house because that was my home.
That's what you knew.
That's all I knew. I knew that people were in the household. No matter what was going on, I knew that when I went to bed, people were in the house and I woke up and people were in the house.
It was your safe place at the time.
And I didn't go to bed waking up like next to my mom and running all over the house screaming because she wasn't there. So it was something that I was like, okay, a little bit of stability here. Like
so
I feel stable. I have friends. I go to school. Like
structure. You had structure.
I had structure. And that was the biggest thing. So, you know, you flash forward, my father had his own business. He had a pawn shop, but he also struggled with addiction. I always say that he was more of a functioning addict than my mom was. My dad was a hustler, started his own business, wanted to work, went golfing, did sports. Like he still was using, but he was able to survive life in that time.
Functioning drug.
Had friends, didn't isolate. My mom isolated. She went to parties, but she'd isolate. My dad was always around a bunch of people, you know, and I think they hung out with the wrong crowds and that did not help. But then at 13 years old, you know, I'm home with my nan one day. I'm upstairs sleeping with her because I had a fever that night. And I remember this so vividly too, because that's all you remember. And I remember the phone ringing in the middle of the night. And then my grandfather is screaming downstairs and saying, my son is not dead. And so my nan, obviously waking up next to me, she heard all the commotion and screaming. And she started screaming. She ran down the stairs. She fell down the stairs. She got up and she was like, my son's not dead, and, you know, screaming. And they're like, who is that? Like, make sure it's real and true and whatever. And then my aunt had called and said that the hotel had called her. And they said they found my father dead on the floor. He's 37. He had gone out in Vegas. We didn't want him to go. He was going for a couple nights before Christmas. And he was out and he drank the whole mini fridge and mixed it with a bunch of cocaine and prescription drugs. And so he went to go lay down and he threw up and he choked. So they found him dead on the floor, blue, and that was it. And so you can imagine my grandparents. My grandmother comes from foster care. Her parents were drinking and alcoholics on the spectrum. My grandfather comes from a house of heroin addicts, a bunch of trauma. He was the only one that didn't use drugs. My grandmother never used drugs. And
So he essentially had that addiction gene. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's in his blood.
yeah. And my grandparents had met, my father's parents had met super young, and they were friends before. They had my father in their teens. And so they only knew each other. They came from toxic households.
They were children when they had him.
They had children. They were children. They got married. My father wasn't that much younger than they were.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, their firstborn, who's close in age with them, their son. I can't imagine losing kids. I never want to even fathom it.
I didn't even think about it.
I always say, like, losing parents is so hard. Losing a child, I can't even fathom.
Yeah, they say that's the worst pain in life.
Right. And you can tell because it really ripped apart our family. So when that happened, our dynamic changed. Our family changed. Our holidays changed. It wasn't the Italian Greek family where we'd invite neighbors over and had people over. It was like, we don't believe in Christmas anymore.
They were broken.
They were broken. I come from a Catholic family. There's no God. How would God take our kids?
They still believe that to this
our
day?
son.
They don't
No, my
okay.
non believes.
They're
My
fine.
grandfather, I think, does, but he's angry, and you can tell.
How could you
Because
not
when
be?
you don't do the work
You don't
afterwards and you heal yourself in your own way, it doesn't help.
You end up
as
destroying your life if
yeah.
you don't do the work.
You end up
You
resentful and angry.
Yeah, you self-sabotage.
Right. And so at that time, my grandparents had to survive on their own. So again, I lived with my grandparents. They were trying to survive after losing a son. I'm there by
Raise
myself
you.
trying to survive. My mom is nowhere to be found.
Raise a daughter that looks just like their son.
Yeah, my dad, I'm his only child. I look just like him. So imagine looking at, it's a happy thing, but it's also a sad thing.
It's a reminder every day.
Yeah,
of what
they're
you
his
lost.
only kid.
Yeah.
So again, they're trying to work on themselves. I'm by myself, trying to go through my dad's death and helping my grandparents. My mom is out in the world getting high, and I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
So, I don't blame them because they needed to go through the grief and the process.
Yeah, they didn't have the tools to
Right.
get better.
And they're in survival mode from their own lives. So imagine survival mode on top of losing a son, back to survival mode, and I'm in survival mode. My father died, and then I had to go through that. And, meanwhile, as you grow up, I left at 18 years old after high school. My mom was using, and she was out in the world, and I would try to find her at times. I couldn't. She wouldn't call for months. I was driving to random houses to try to find her, and she was hanging out with really bad crowds.
So while you were living with your grandparents, did she just kind of like pop in and out of your life?
Pop in
like
and out.
just to say hi to you for a day?
Yeah.
Or you'd stay with her for one night and then you'd go back to your grandparents' house?
I'd go back to my grandparents' house. But at 18, I left. But I was constantly searching for her. She was using. She didn't want to come near me a lot because she was embarrassed and she was sad that she couldn't be the mother. So I was chasing her around.
And she was probably trying to protect you by not being
Yeah,
around.
she was trying to protect me.
Yeah.
Well, I'd find her and she'd always say that she was okay, but I clearly knew that she wasn't, right? So my mom was trying to get jobs, trying to do a lot of things to survive. Ended up on the streets, ended up back in jail. I'd go visit her. It was very hard. It's like sitting across, again, from someone you love, and they're sliding pictures. There was like a phone that you can use and a slot.
Yeah.
And so she'd slide pictures or notes under there that I could have. But I'm sitting across the glass from someone that you want to hug.
From the person that's supposed to protect you and love you
Yeah.
unconditionally and be there for you.
Yeah, and with her, she always had a smile on. She was always, because she didn't want me to feel bad. She never used in front of me, but she was high at times in front of me. But never did I see her stick a needle in her arm in front of me. She was very embarrassed. I remember telling her when my dad died, like, I need you to step the game up. I need you to survive. What can we do? Like, I lost one parent.
How old were you when you were telling her all this?
Like 15. And I was like, my dad died at 13. But later as I grew up, I was like, I need you here. I can't do this on my own. After my first stepfather, years later, she met somebody else, and he was the best. He reminded me of my father. He came from an Italian family. They had people over all the time. She seemed happy. He was sober. She was trying to get sober, or sober maybe at a very small time frame. And then later down the line, they started using together. When someone is on the decline, you see it. Because you see someone smiling, going happy, and then drifting. And she's falling asleep at the table, and she's falling asleep on Mother's Day. And you just know.
She was sick.
When she's not good. Yeah. And he was driving home. They were in an argument. He was at a stoplight. He stopped to use and shoot a needle in. The light turned green. Someone went through the light. He hit the light post and died instantly.
God.
So he died. She called me and was like, another person I have lost. And I feel like God's punishing me for all the wrongdoings I've had in life. And I was super close to him. And so I was like, all right, so my dad's gone. My stepdad, who I was close to, is gone. And now what does this mean for my mom?
Like, what's going to happen?
What is
who
next?
Am I going to lose now?
What is next? And my whole life I've been like that. Who's next? I get a call in the middle of the night. I leave, a relationship, we break up. I can't stand the loss. I'm freaking out, lose it. Because I'm so used to loss that it triggers everything in my body. My nervous system goes out of whack completely. He passes. I go to the services. My nan is with me, my dad's mom. We walk in. She walks past me and doesn't even say hello. And my nan is like, Lynn, your daughter's right here. And she turned around and was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't think she was high at the time. I think she was just trying to process. And she turned around and she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, whatever, and came and gave me a kiss. But at that service, my mom was like, can I talk to Paige for a second? And she was like, of course. They always got along. And my mom was very respectful to my other grandparents. And she sat me down at the service. And she pulled out a photo album. And it was pictures of her and I, all the way when I was younger, growing up. And so in my mind, right, I'm an adult. And I'm like, what are you giving me these for?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I just want you to have them. And so my nan's sitting behind me. And she's like, I have to go to the bathroom. My mom leaves. My nan steps forward. And my nan's like, listen, I don't mean to be negative, because I'm trying not to be. Your mom, I don't want to say this out loud, but is next. Because
So she told you that.
Yeah, because she wanted to warn me. She was like, Paige,
So you could emotionally prepare.
The photo album doesn't make sense. Does not make sense. With all the pictures, childhood, leading up. I mean, pictures of us.
Keepsake. It's keepsakes.
It's keepsake. But you're like, why are you giving me this now? And it was weird because I knew she loved me at the time, but it was very, I think she had so much going on in her mind, tried to process. It was like cold. And so.
Yeah, like it wasn't a warm memory to give that to you. You could feel that it wasn't like something
It wasn't
positive.
warm. No, it didn't feel like my mom.
It was like a premonition for something that's to come.
Yeah, and for someone that's a really warm human being, she's really warm. So for her not to be was very weird, and I was off. I knew something was off. And I told both of my grandparents, I was like, listen, to my grandfather, everyone in the city. I hate to say this because it sounds selfish, but I was like, if we just get something put in her car, I don't care what it is, and have her pulled over, she will go to jail for a long time. I did not want my mother in jail, but I knew it was the only hope to get her clean.
That would save her.
That would save her for a certain amount of time. And my grandparents were like, we're not putting your mom in jail. We can't do that. Like, let's come up with another plan or whatever. But they had their own life. And so I was thinking every night, going home to my best friends at the time that I lived with, and I was like, what do I do? Freaking out, And I knew she was going, but I didn't think she was going the way that she went.
What about your mom? Like, when did you lose her after, like, the photo album? When she gave you the photo album, when did you lose her
My
after
mom
that?
gave me the photo album. I left. My mom called me a little bit after. And my mom had never asked me for money my entire life. Never. She could never give me anything. Never. But she'd take the shirt off her back and give it to me. She was that kind of person. And she would do that for anybody. My father was the same way. But shortly after that, my mom had called me and asked me for money. If you tell me the truth, I'll give you the money. I just want to know, like, you don't seem like yourself. I understand you're going through a lot of stuff, but like,
What's going on?
what's going on? So I was like, all right. I told my grandparents at the time, my dad's parents where I used to live. I said, I'll meet you at the house and I'll give you money. I know this is terrible to say, but I didn't want her coming to my apartment because if anyone was following her, and I lived with my best friends at the time, they could come there.
Yeah, that's smart, Paige.
They could come there. They could hurt us. They could try to get money from us. If I'm not there and my friends, like, I couldn't do it. And that's terrible for me to say because
it's
my
not
mom.
terrible. You're smart.
Yeah.
You're emotionally intelligent. You understand what could potentially happen.
Right. At the time, it was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
So she came to the house and she sat down and I was like, all right, Mom, like, I have run out of options. You know, I've tried to get you clean and sober. I've asked you to go to rehab. I've done everything I can. My love for you, everything. Every single thing you could think of, I have done. Mm-hmm. I said, so now we are at a crossroads. Tell me what the money's for, and I'll give it to you. Mm-hmm. And like, I knew she wasn't telling the truth,
of course.
but she couldn't admit it. Because what mother would want to admit that they needed it for heroin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I took her hand out. I put the money in her hand. And I was like, I don't love you. I'm done with you. And she was like, you don't love me? Like, started crying. And I was like, no. Mm-hmm. I said, I've exhausted all options. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm depleted.
I'm depleted. Even though I loved her more than anything.
Of course.
I was like, maybe if I tell her I don't love her,
she'll stop and not go.
A spark will hit and be like, well, my love for my child
is more than my addiction.
Is more than my addiction. Because I ran out of everything. I ran out of every option. Mm-hmm. She took the money. She left. She called me in the car crying, you don't love me? I said, no. I want nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. Good luck on your life. Your daughter is now not your daughter. Mm-hmm. You know, that's it. And shortly after, my grandmother was calling me over and over again. Mm-hmm. I mean, over and over again. And I know when they call over and over again.
It's not something good.
No. Yeah. And I was afraid to answer, but I thought maybe it was something. I was hoping that it was something else. Mm-hmm. I answered the phone. My grandmother was like, Paige. And I said, yeah. And she said, nothing. She didn't say anything. It was quiet. And I was like, Gram? Mm-hmm. She's like, yeah. Silence. Now I'm driving on the way to work. Okay?
You knew.
I said, you're not going to tell me Mom's dead, are you? And she was like, yeah, she shot herself this morning. And I was like, parked the car. I got out. I laid on the street. People were getting out of their cars because I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
Life's over.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
That's it.
You
Laid in the street. I came home. I went to my house. My girlfriends had all come over at the time. I was very overwhelmed. I was crying, but I was shocked and numb. I didn't want to believe it. You know, all the memories flashed. Mm-hmm. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was 26 at the time.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s. I had her years and years after my father. I was an adult. Mm-hmm. My mom was the main person in my life that I was always trying to save. Mm-hmm. I could believe it. I couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. It was the battle.
Yeah, totally.
I thought she'd OD. I didn't think she'd take her own life. Mm-hmm. Shortly after, I had gone to her house. I wanted to get the stuff out of the house that I didn't get with my father. Mm-hmm. So like her clothes, her jewelry, her pictures, everything that reminded me of her because I wanted it.
You wanted her stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And so when I got to the house that day, I didn't tell anyone I was going. I couldn't get in. And at the time, it was an old house with double windows. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to break in because I couldn't get in. Mm-hmm. The house was in the same condition as it was when they took her out. So when I got there, there was no one there, and then carpet cleaners and firemen had showed up at the house. And so while I was there, I was like, I need to get in this house. I couldn't get in. I was praying that, you know, to my parents to have someone let me in because I really wanted to get the stuff. And at the time, you're so crazy with adrenaline. I was getting in no matter what. Mm-hmm. That's how my personality is.
Well, yeah.
I set my mind to it. I'm getting it. So when I did that, they said, we don't want to let you in the house. And I said, I'm getting in here. I want to spend time in the house for a minute to get my mom's things, and then I'll come right back out. And they're like, we have kids. We're parents. We don't want you to go in the house because that's going to be one of the memories. And the house is the same way it is when they took her out.
They were trying to protect you from seeing what you saw.
And so at the time, I didn't care.
Yeah, you didn't get it. And you didn't, yeah.
No, I didn't even listen to them. I was like, I need you to let me in. Come to find out later that my grandmother they called my grandmother, my mom's mom, and were like, her daughter's here and she wants to get in the house. And my grandma was like, let her in. So I walked in and, they were behind me and they're like, okay, but don't go in the bathroom. And of course, what do you do when someone tells you not to go?
Of course you go in the bathroom.
And there's a note on the door that says, call the police, in her handwriting. So I'm like, all right, she's taken out. Like, I'm going crazy. I'm like, do I want to walk in here? Do I not want to walk in here? The note, obviously, because she didn't want someone to, that's how she was. She didn't want anyone to walk in because she knew that.
Yeah, call the police. Don't come in here.
Don't come in here.
Yeah.
Right. And so I opened the door. I covered my mouth. And when I went in there, my mom's insides were on the outside.
Was your mom still in there?
No, she had been taken out. But her remains.
Because she shot herself, right?
So there was a pillow with blood all over it. There was, at the time, they had like juke boxes. There was music, because she was probably playing music to get herself comfortable, right? The pillow, they told me later, was, in my note or whatever, that she had made herself comfortable so that when she fell on the ground, that there was a pillow. Her teeth were on the ground. Everything was blood. And it was all my mom's remains. And so I had broke everything in the bathroom. I was very angry. And I had shut the bathroom door. And I walked out and I went into the bedroom and I was like, you know what? There was a bag of pills, prescription meds, not any of her name. And it was a big bag, duffel bag. I took them because I was like, I'm going to go home and Google this. That's how I am. I'm going to see what she was on and what she was taking. I looked on the bed. There was wake boards made already. So if you have a service, and she didn't want one, but there were pictures of us on a board, and she had everything planned out. I laid in the bed, and my mom had laid in it.
Took in her last cents before you walked out.
Yeah, and I took the stuff that I wanted, and I had gone downstairs. She had laundry in the dryer, and I had taken the stuff out because it smelled like her, and then all of a sudden the blood had come through the ceiling and it was coming onto me.
Dripping on you.
And so I had left the house and I was in shock. But I had my mom's stuff, so I was like, I was like, I have what I needed, and I was trying to be strong and like, this is it. This is it. It's real. It's happening. I'm in my 20s. My parents are gone. It's just me. In my world, I wanted her to live. So that's what I thought. Even though in the back of my mind, I was like, she's going to OD because she's doing too much. I had left there with the bag of drugs. I had like 100 missed calls on my phone. Everyone was going crazy where I was. And the morgue had called. So I called the number back, and the morgue was like, your mom wanted to be cremated. Would you like to come see her for one last time? So when I got there, I was like, okay, I'm going to say goodbye to her. When I got there, someone was working behind the desk. And I say this detail because to this day, it's like
imprinted in your head.
It's imprinted. I can't get rid of it.
Can't unsee it.
Yeah. The lady was like, listen, as a mother, again,
don't go in there.
Don't go in there. This is how she was picked up off the floor. This isn't a service where there's makeup on her.
It's an
investigation. We picked her up off the floor. This is how she is. As a mother, I'm telling you, this will be your last memory. And I was like, do it.
Didn't listen.
No. Because in my mind, honestly, I thought that you would pull whatever out. I can take her arm out and kiss her hand, not see her face. I didn't want to, and I can leave. And that would be my peace. But instead, they put you in a room, they turn on a TV screen, and you only see the face. I said goodbye to her there.
And that was your last memory.
That was it. And the last thing I said to her was, I don't love you. So she passed, and you can only imagine what the next chapter.
Yeah, carrying those last words, I feel like you probably thought about that repeatedly over and over and over again.
Over and over.
Yeah.
Mad at myself.
But
I thought that would be a way to wake her up.
You thought it would save her, which is why you said it. You didn't mean it. You said it to save her. And at the end of the day, she was your own worst enemy, and she didn't want to save herself.
No.
And
shortly after that, I had gotten a letter that she left me. And she left me a long, detailed letter, and it seemed sober because it was all very loving. And the big umbrella part of it is that she said, I really wanted to be the mother that I couldn't be. And that was it.
And then after that, I know you lived on your own at the time. So you've told me before in our private conversations how you leaned more into drugs and alcohol because you just wanted to numb your pain.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, what was that period like?
I checked out after she died. I was like, well, the rest, if
Nothing
I go now,
anymore.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I was over it. I was ready.
For.
I was like, I'm ready.
Yeah, nothing else to live for.
No, nothing else.
You've seen the worst of
every
the worst.
holiday, every birthday, now both sides of my family are struggling. They're in survival mode. I have to be in survival mode for them and 2 parents. I was done. I was like, so if I'm here, I'm going to party and make bad decisions and just I don't care. I really don't give a shit.
So you became the drug addict that your parents were, essentially. You became who they were.
I became who they were.
Just
different things.
Yeah, to numb your pain.
Yeah, I was prescribed my medicine. So for me, it was like, I'm not doing anything wrong because I'm prescribed.
Yeah.
From teens on, when my father died, I would take things for anxiety and depression because they were very present and it was very hard. And then as I shifted into an adult, I needed a stronger dose. But I was finishing the bottle way before it should have been finished because when you take it that long, it wasn't working. And I wanted to be completely numb. I was still going to work. I was still doing, but I didn't want to feel one thing.
So you were numbing like your dad did.
Numbing completely. And fast forward, I had been at my house one day. I was taking a shower. I went to grab a shampoo bottle. I was out of my medicine and I couldn't hold it.
Shaking.
I was withdrawing. I was shaking. And so I called my aunt and I said, I need a ride to rehab just because I can't drive, or I'll take an Uber. She drove me. I went for 28 days. I came home and never looked back. I'm not a drinker now. I've never enjoyed alcohol, but now I really don't. I like to be as in control as possible. And when you do those things, you're out of control. And I didn't want to end up like them.
Yeah, what do you think? Where do you think you got your strength from? How did you not turn into your parents? Why do you think you decided to change your life and do something different?
Because I tried to take my life twice and it didn't work out.
So you tried to kill yourself twice and it never worked. So maybe that was a sign from God that you're meant to be here.
I think it was a sign from them. They were like, you're not going. You're a product of us. We were great people. We couldn't kick it. You can.
So when you were shaking in the shower with the bottle, you knew that you were going to end up third time potentially dying at some point, like them.
Yeah. And it didn't matter.
So that was a defining moment for you, essentially, right?
I was like, does this really matter to me? Or can I change my life and inspire other people that are going through this?
What tools do you currently do in your life that you feel like helps you get through your days?
Work out, journal. I'm writing my book. Meditation. Music is the one thing that saved me. I would sleep in my bathtub at times with my headphones in because I was sick of everyone asking me how I was. I'm sorry, how are you? Do you need anything? I was like, I need everyone gone. Just leave me alone. And to this day, I'm not a group person. I'm a one-on-one person. I can focus. I can listen. My memory is not great at certain times because I feel like the PTSD from gunshots and everything, I focus on some things and I'm not great at others. But when someone has a story or they're struggling, I am 100% locked in because I relate. These stories of the people coming on this podcast hopefully are relatable.
Yeah, and I think you want people to not feel alone.
I don't want people to feel alone.
Your big purpose for doing this and having all these guests on and these moving stories is you want people out there in the crowd to not feel alone.
Right.
You want people to feel like they can confide in you and other people and that everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Everyone's lives aren't perfect, even if they look like they're perfect.
Yeah.
Like you look like the depiction of someone that has their shit figured out.
Yeah.
And you've gone through the most trauma that I have ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And I feel like you've come out on the other side and you're trying to share your story to inspire others to survive.
Right. And I think putting, I like fashion, I like everything. It's another protection. Like if I look the part, if I look put together, no one's going to think that I'm losing it and crumbling on the inside. Because truly, I'm a happy person. But the internal struggle of not having two parents, of not ever having them again, getting married one day, having kids if I want, like whatever my path is, my wedding, walking down the aisle, they will never physically be here again. Mm-hmm. So they're here in spirit, but they'll never physically, I will never see their faces again on this earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's
so I want people to know that like, I know what feeling alone is like. At 37, I feel alone. Mm-hmm. But I just do the things that don't make me feel alone, whether that's being around friends, a community, anything. Everyone is different on this podcast, but we all come together in the same way as whether you struggle from anxiety, depression, whether you struggle from anything, there's everything on here. There's trauma, there's weight loss, there's cancer, there's relationships. Everything is going to be talked about on this podcast.
Yeah, I feel like everyone goes through their own trials and tribulations. Like this is about surviving and coming out on the other side, which I feel like you have done.
Yeah.
So
still a work in progress, like everyone,
but
you know what?
Like we all are.
We all are.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at you, dude. Look at you.
I know. Oh my God, this is the worst.
You did it.
Okay, that's our ending.